Three unqualified morons with microphones. This is the previously recorded podcast. What is up, party people? It is your host, RP, here for this special episode of Previously Recorded, which, as always, is brought to you by Totally Tees and our T Public store, which is in the show notes. You can get a ton of merch.
It's on the T Public store. We got hats, we got phone cases, laptop cases, we got crew necks, we got t-shirts, we got baseball tees.
We do have
everything
bringing
you want,
baseball
Shanks.
tees back.
We got it all back, baby. Thank you for that great plug, Shane. Remember to check that out. It helps to support the show. So today's episode is actually going to be from the Gateway Gamers Blockbuster Summer, where we talk about my all-time favorite movie, that might be a surprise to some of you listeners, is The Wizard of Oz. So over at Gateway Gamers all summer, we have been playing board games and recording episodes, releasing them on Friday, and then the following Monday, releasing an episode where we talk about the movie, review it, the history, the backstory, production, all that fun stuff that we usually do here, but just covering things that we don't usually cover on Previously Recorded. So it's been a real fun thing to do all summer with Marvel, because I didn't think we'd ever do a previously recorded episode on The Wizard of Oz, but it just coincided with a game about The Wizard of Oz that came out, so we covered that, and then we talked about the movie and got a chance to rewatch it, and it's still fantastic, but it was a lot of fun, and I really want to share it with you guys in case you're not listening to the Gateway Gamers. This might be a good intro episode for you, and I wanted to give the guys off a week for the summer. So here it is. They're off, and I'm going to be plugging in an episode of the Gateway Gamers from the Blockbuster Summer, discussing my all-time favorite movie, The Wizard of Oz, and maybe you'll learn something, because there's a lot of really cool, fun stuff that we talk about behind the scenes. Well, no, not all of it's fun, because there's some really sad stuff associated with it, but you might learn something new that you didn't know before, and it might even be an opportunity that you're like, hey, maybe I should rewatch this movie because it's great. But this is an entryway into the Blockbuster Summer. Head over there if you after you listen to this episode, if you like it, so you can check out. We did Jaws, we did Alien, we've done Harry Potter, and so many other great films that you know and love. And you might learn something new, and even a couple of those movies I watched for the first time getting to do this. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. Remember to rate, like, and subscribe. Leave us a rating, or as we say over at the Gateway Gamers for Blockbuster Summer, be kind, subscribe. All right, party people, so we will be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. But until then, enjoy this episode of Gateway Gamers Blockbuster Summer presents The Wizard of Oz. It is the winter of 1938. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs has just premiered to critical and commercial success. Seeing the success of this children's book adaptation, MGM feels the need to adapt their own. They quickly purchased the rights to L. Frank Baum's popular novel from producer Samuel Goldwyn, who toyed with the idea of making his own fantasy movie. After several drafts, rewrites, director, and actor changes, production begins in late 1938 on what was, at the time, MGM's most expensive movie ever made. After a troubled production, the film opens in late summer of 1939 to critical success, winning 2 Academy Awards but doesn't turn a profit, leaving MGM execs puzzled. It is not until the film's re-release in 1949 and subsequent TV broadcast in 1956 that it finds its legs and begins to cement its place as one of the all-time classics in American cinema, going on to become the most seen film in movie history. That's right, the morons are talking the beloved classic, The Wizard of Oz.
To Oz?
To Oz! 2 unqualified morons playing tabletop. This is the Gateway Gamers podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Gateway Gamers Podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm RP.
And this is a podcast where a veteran like me introduces the world of gaming to a noob.
Like me. Not too
Hello,
bad,
sir.
huh?
Yeah.
Not as good as you, but it's,
No,
it's
no.
not too bad. You do a very good job.
Told you, you're taking reins at back of the box. You're reading the intro. It's not as easy.
It's only for things that rest.
This is yours, yeah.
Rest deep with me. But how you doing, man? Happy whatever day it is of the week, and happy Monday to all you listeners out there. If you're listening to release, I know this is always a hot tape, and people can't wait to see this. You know, just like people used to line up to watch Wizard of Oz every Thanksgiving night in front of their TVs at home back in the old day. But you doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm pretty excited to talk about this one because it was a nice change of pace from aliens and sharks and dinosaurs to have like this nice, more of a sit down and relax movie, a nice cozy movie.
It is a very, very cozy movie. And a movie that I haven't actually watched start to finish in a really long time for, being my favorite movie. I usually throw it on, don't finish it kind of thing. I've seen it so many times that I can pick up anywhere and it doesn't really matter. But after not seeing this movie for a really long time, kind of right off the bat, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of the same. I think this is the first time I watched it. I don't even know how long. Has to be like easily over 10 years. Like I can't think of the last time I turned this movie on and like sat down and watched it. Like you, I've probably seen it on TV and watched like snippets here and there. But for not having watched it in so long, I was right there again as a kid. Like I knew what was coming. I knew like the lines. I knew this movie beat by beat. So I probably watched it like 1,000 times as a kid.
I definitely did. It's just one of those movies, man, that just transports you back to one of the first times you're watching it. Do you remember the first time you saw this film?
I can't. No,
Yeah, me either.
I
It's
remember
just
having the clamshell of it. So whatever release
Mhm.
that it came on VHS, I had like the clamshell,
It was yellow, Dorothy in the middle, and the Scarecrow Line Tin Man at the bottom.
like
That's
skipping towards.
No, the one I had was they were like looking over some sort of fence, and like it was a blue background, Yellow Brick Road, Emerald City in the background.
See, I'm picturing them skipping toward the castle and like
Well,
this.
that
this
is a
bright-
version. I mean, there's been so many re-releases
Mhm.
of it, in our age difference. I mean, that's probably I just had the later one, but this was a movie that one, like how you hear all the time growing up. Oh, as a kid, I played this tape so much I broke it. Like this is one of the ones that I actually like nearly broke. I played it so much that my sister could hear it through the walls. And then even when I wasn't playing it, she thought she was hearing it through the walls. And this is just my all-time favorite movie. It's just it brings back so many memories, and it is my childhood this was the movie I went to all the time, no matter what. The soundtrack I played over and over again. I even watched an old tape of The Wizard of Oz on Ice, which whatever. And then there was the Wizard of Oz in concert with Jackson Brown as the Scarecrow, and Jewel was Dorothy. Roger Daltrey, Nathan Lane.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, what was that?
It was like a benefit concert called Dreams Come True. And if you haven't heard, if you're a fan of Wizard of Oz, just go look up on YouTube Wizard of Oz in concert just to hear those versions of the song. That's my favorite version of If I Only Had a Brain. It's beautiful. Their voices are so nice. But yeah, I could go on and gush about this movie, how much I love it. I'm excited to talk about the kind of the development and the behind the scenes stuff. This is one of those things too that I've always just known the issues with this movie, because when the internet came out, this was and you have all this downtime when you're at school or you're in college sitting in class, and you're just like go down a rabbit hole. This is one of the movies that like I would find myself on the Wikipedia page and knowing more and more and more about the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy because I had like a vague sense of like everything that went on behind the scenes. I knew some of the stories, but like I really dive deep like into more of the backstory of everything, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, like it's not surprising because it was 1938 like or 37 like when they were making this. So like some of the stuff I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a different time. Like, all right.
Well, the fact alone that the director change that they went through.
Yeah, like 4 times.
Yeah. So the original director was Norman Tayrog. Then he was replaced by Richard Thorpe for like not even a full 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then came in George Cukor, I believe is how you pronounce it. And then he left to go do Gone with the Wind. So they brought in Victor Fleming, who's apparently a Nazi sympathizer. And then he left in February of that year to go do Gone with the Wind. And then King Vidor came and finished it. And he doesn't even take credit for it. Victor Fleming used to not take credit for this film. And it didn't until I guess his family decided once he passed away that he could be the credited director. But
Yeah,
I mean, that alone is wild. A production to this level in the pantheon of American cinema, to know that it went through the hands of 4 different directors is crazy to me.
Yeah, and they try to like figure out who directed what. Like there's some like argument of who filmed like the beginning with like the sepia tone and who filmed like what scene. So it's interesting that like they don't even have a log of who really
Yeah,
kind of jumped in.
The only one I know is that Norman Turog, the original one, he did a lot of the test screenings, and he did film the beginning. But then I'm pretty sure they had to replace when they replaced the Tin Man and the Wicked Witch. They went back and refilmed that anyway.
Yeah.
Which that alone too is crazy. That this was kind of developed with the idea to have a very popular actor at the time, Buddy Ebsen. He was originally set to play the Scarecrow. As you all know, the Scarecrow was played by Ray Bolger, and the Ray Bolger was cast as the Tin Man, which that alone would have been a very interesting interpretation of the role. But apparently he loved whatever Wizard of Oz came out prior, and one of his favorite actors played the Scarecrow, so he had this desire to bring that to the screen from what I read. And so him and Buddy Ebsen switched roles, and Buddy Ebsen went on to play the Tin Man, ended up having an allergic reaction to the metallic makeup that they had to use, which that fact is something I've always known. I don't know how, but that is I think it might have been from one of the behind the scenes things that I watched.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of them I kind of knew too. And like the metal coated his lungs and he had to be in like a tent. Like
like it was it was bad. And the funniest part is like he was the first person cast, and then he ended up not even being in the movie because he switched roles with another actor.
Yeah.
Which
was something, sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off. Something was crazy that I read, like, or kind of didn't know, was like how casting was done back then. Like you're basically owned by the company or like the movie studio. It wasn't like now where it's like, all right, we're getting you a contract for one movie, where it was just like, all right, we own you. Yep. You're doing this movie, whether or not they wanted to do it or not. Like, and how they tried to get what's her name to play Dorothy?
Shirley Temple.
They tried to get Shirley Temple and like try to negotiate with whoever owned her contract. Like they couldn't be like, hey, do you want to do this movie? She'd be like, oh, sure, swell. But they were just like, hey, do you want to do this movie? And the company's just like, no, we own her. You can't have her. Like,
I mean, so it's very much like the way to put it in today's terms is like how the European League operates, kind of, where MGM got, I think it was Jack Haley who played the Tin Man. They got him on loan from Fox. Like that's how movie studios operate. It was you're signed a contract, but then you're with that studio for 10 years, life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was I agree. It's so interesting now that is how it used to work, and not, a role to role, which I guess if you were a bad actor, it was a benefit to you because a studio had you and they were going to use you.
But it's like how many movies where they probably in with are like, I don't want to do this, but it's like, you shut your mouth and do the movie.
Well, so many. So
apparently
many.
This movie, no one really.
Oh, really? I didn't read that.
Yeah, like, well, because of the grueling conditions, like they were not having a great time. And I watched like an interview after, and I think that the actor played a Scarecrow. I think after a certain point he looked back on it fondly, but like I know for a long time he's like, I didn't care about this movie, like I just didn't. But I think eventually, like the fame and longevity of it, he was like, all right, I'm coming around to it. But from some of the stuff I read, like it was a nightmare.
Well, I mean, their makeup alone, like they weren't allowed to like eat during it while they had their makeup on. And like you said, he had to be in a tent. The original Tin Man. And since they wanted to make the color pop so much, it was hot as shit in there. They had the lights all the way up, and
I read like the way they had to do the Technicolor, they had to have it so bright for the cameras to work, where the set was like 103 degrees.
Yeah.
For like hours. Like people are passing out left and right. Like you got to figure the Tin Man was literally in like a Coca-Cola can. Like
I know.
103 degree weather. Like it just sounded like a nightmare.
It sounded awful, but the result is perfect. It's beautiful. It stood the test of time. Where this movie, obviously, like some of the special effects don't look great, but
they do though. They do. That's one of the things I think.
Even the Glinda, like when she appears with her bubble, like for a movie from before,
from 1939,
slightly after Prohibition ended. Like this is a film that came out, and this was their special effects, and it works, and stuff that doesn't look great. Well, I mean, I can't really pinpoint it because obviously you watch it with, okay, this is a 1930s movie, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's why practical effects will always be better than technology. Like a movie from like 1995 using the computer effects of the time
A
would look
perfect,
awful
a
compared to practical effects.
not to cut you off, but a perfect example is Oz the Great and Powerful. This is literally, if you go and watch Oz the Great and Powerful, that's exactly how this movie would be made if it was made today.
Yeah.
Everything, a green screen clusterfuck that looks terrible. And then you hold it up to this, where you have beautiful backdrop paintings and detailed yellow brick road and just scenes that look like real. The cornfield where the scarecrow is, that doesn't look like a real cornfield, but that looks great. The trees that come to life look great. And I know that's more of like a prosthetic, but like there's nothing in this movie where I'm like, that looks bad. Like the Emerald City looks fantastic. The Tin Man looks great. Obviously, Burt Lahr as the lion looks really good, like the way they did his prosthetics and the attention to detail. So this is a movie that I do own in 4K. And you might think, RP, this might not be a movie you need to own in 4K. It came out in the 30s, but this is the first time watching it that I noticed the detail on the Scarecrow's face. If you look at his face, there is...
It looks like a sack. I've noticed that watching it today, too. I was like, man, that looks great.
On his cheeks, and I never noticed that before, and I was really blown away by that. I was like, wow, this is something that back in the day in a theater probably wouldn't have picked up. You know, you probably wouldn't have seen that, but the fact that they did that, and even his head alone, like everything looks fantastic. And this is one of the reasons I think this movie has stood the test of time, because of how amazing it looks. Like they spent a week trying to determine the shade of yellow for the yellow brick road. Like they put that much attention to detail into the color aspect of it. Now, growing up, I always thought this is one of the first color movies, and it's not. But growing up, that's what I thought. And it's just one of the many reasons of why this movie is still good today if you watch it for the first time.
Yeah, or the 100th time. Like I said, I knew this movie beat by beat, and I still just had a good time. Like, I'm like, what a good movie. Like, it's not a movie that you get to wrap your head around and just watch it, and you're just like, okay. Like,
now, the only thing I will say in the beginning, it is some parts are a little comical where they have to allude to the three, the Scarecrow, Lion, Tin Man, when they're like, they make it super obvious.
Yeah.
That like, oh, they're going to erect a statue of me in this town one day. And it's like, because he was working on some contraption, like that stuff made me laugh going by. I was like, I never really paid attention to that before. I paid attention to and then the farmer being afraid of the pigs. Like they couldn't have made that like a more dangerous animal, I suppose. But
what do you mean?
Because he's the cowardly lion.
I know, but pigs are dangerous.
You
ever seen Hannibal? Did you watch the movie Hannibal?
No, I've never seen Hannibal.
They have a
board game. We can play that.
They have board game Hannibal? No.
But
what's his name? Who plays Commissioner Gordon in the Batman movies? Gary Oldman. Yeah, Gary Oldman's gimmick in that movie is like throwing people into like a thing of pigs, and all the pigs eat the people alive.
Oof. Okay. Yeah. All right. Maybe they are a little scary then. But even the Cyclone looks amazing. Like,
yeah, that was cool. Did you read how they did that? Like how much that costs and everything?
No, I didn't.
It's like a giant like windsock. I forget. Like it costs like I guess not a lot now, but at that time, but it's like a giant windsock they kind of made up, and they were actually like funneling dust into it, and they had this giant motor like twist it one way and one to go the other way. Like it was like a really well constructed, insane sounding contraption for not used a lot in the movie. Like when you see it, it's not like the whole movie you're seeing is Twister. It's just like this one scene.
It's a huge plot point.
It's a pivotal point, but it's just interesting. Like, again, a practical effect. Now it would just be some CGI. Like, oh, there's a cow in there.
True. Well, speaking of like insane, did you by chance see what the original outline of this film would have been?
No.
So out of the production team, out of fear that fantasy films had proven to be unsuccessful, they removed a ton of the magic elements of the story. So the original outline had the Scarecrow as a man so stupid that the only employment open to him was literally scaring crows from a cornfield. And the Tin Woodsman was a criminal so heartless that he was sentenced to be placed in a tin suit for eternity. And then this torture softened him into somebody gentler and kinder. It sounds awful.
So was she not going to Oz? Was it just like
I guess it was just like the neighbor next door or
Yeah.
the farmhand. But eventually they went with the final film that we saw, but they pushed back a little bit on the fantasy by making it the dream sequence, which
I wonder if because this movie was kind of made as a combatant to Disney. Like I wonder if that was like an original script before Snow White.
I guess,
And
that
kind
would
of
make
saying
sense.
like Snow White works. Like, oh, okay, fantasy does kind of work. Like I wonder if that was
Well, Snow White did influence this film because originally the Wicked Witch was portrayed as like sly and glamorous, and so the original actress dropped out, and that's why Margaret Hamilton came on, who also was hurt during production.
yeah,
You saw that too with
Little-
the
lit on fire.
lit on fire, and she's like, "I'm done with fire." Like she was in the hospital and everything.
Well, they coat her in copper paint. Like again, the 30s where it's just like, we know copper isn't good.
But-
Just slather it on.
it
Where
looks
then,
really
like-
great on film, though.
But like, and not to be laughing about, but she developed Alzheimer's later in life, and people say that you can get that from like copper exposure.
No shit,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. So like, it's just like, fuck, man. Like, come on, like, and then the asbestos, like all the stuff.
Like this really is such a troubled production. All this stuff we're talking about here, it's just crazy that the movie didn't just stop. Or I mean, it's not like it was a smooth pre-production process. I mean, it went through 7 different rewrites and drafts of the script. It's nuts. And the final draft wasn't done until October, which was about 3 months before they started filming. Like it was really just kind of like, which nowadays scripts aren't even done when the movies are already filming and almost done filming. So it's
Mhm.
nothing new, but like the fact, like again, just the fact that this was such a troubled production, so much bad stuff happened behind the scenes, and we haven't even covered some of the stuff with the Munchkins, but that this is such a movie in the pantheon of American cinema, but it's
Yeah.
just so troubled, and one little thing could have sent this movie down a different path. Like Somewhere Almost Over the Rainbow was on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I read that too. Like that they
They-
cut that out.
They
Like,
thought that it extended the Kansas scene too long, and they wanted to shorten that so they could get to Oz, obviously.
let's cut
But I
this
mean, it's the same thing
beautiful
with
song out.
it's the same thing with The Little Mermaid. Like The Little Mermaid, they almost cut Part of Your World, which is the iconic song from that film. And I always find that super interesting, of like who goes to bat for it
And when it
Is it-
works.
and when it works and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't, it's just like just kind of talk about the movie. Like it just works so nicely. And like I just try to think of like, even though this wasn't the first color picture, but like that reveal of like that scene when they go through the house,
Mm-hmm.
it just color is like still just like wow, like because you are, I think, how long's the beginning? Like 20 minutes. You're kind of
Yeah,
in
it's
that sepia tone. So it's just
I think it's like the 18-minute mark, the twister hits or something like that.
yeah, so you're just in this world and you're just your brain is just like, all right, I'm watching like a black and white film. And then when you do go through that door and it's such a great transition, like even though I know it's coming, I'm just like, oh man, like look how nice this all is because you've just been watching something
Mm-hmm.
in this bland color palette for 20 minutes. So
Yep.
like when it hits you. You're like, oh wow, like look how bright everything is.
Yeah, that scene still kind of makes me like in awe. And you said that you had this on earlier, and your son was watching a little bit of it.
Mhm.
Now, did he dip out before the color part?
Nah, he stuck around. I think the scarecrow kind of came around and he was just like, all right, I'm out of here.
That's the
Like,
best
but
part.
I'll try to explain that to a 2-year-old. Yeah, like finally it's getting interesting. Where you going? And he's truck.
No trucks in the Wizard of
No,
Oz, so he's
none.
out. He's out.
But yeah, like I just loved like when she goes through the door and I love the matte painting backgrounds. I love that cheesiness. Like I love the plastic flowers. I love like when the Munchkins come out and they're all wearing flowers on their shoes for some reason.
I
Like it's just
know. Well,
bizarre.
The flowers on the shoes, so that's also something I picked up this time. I think that was just so they could hide in the plants.
I guess, yeah. I think it was just
They're
they-
also terrifying. Like their makeup and their weird prosthetics they had to wear.
I think it's in the higher HD. Yeah. I think
Growing up, I
The-
never liked it growing up either. The makeup and stuff was too weird for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, the lollipop
the lot of,
trio are like, ooh,
and
what is happening here?
some of them, even while they were acting, they didn't look like they knew what they were supposed to do.
Oh,
Like
did you
the
pick up
lollipop
on the
guild for sure.
one? There's a one in blue that's always in frame. So it's like Dorothy, the mayor, or whoever it is, the pontificator is just like, I don't know. Without subtitles, I have no idea what that guy's saying. But there's a guy behind Dorothy in like blue, and he's mouthing everything.
Really?
He's definitely like 100% mouthing like everyone's lines, which is funny because like you could tell their recordings put in later. Like it's not like
so many scenes. Yeah.
so he's just like kind of mouthing along while this guy's just like and like you see this guy just back there like mouthing stuff. But like you said, there are just munchkins that are just like shaking hands, shaking hands, shaking hands, shaking hands. Like Dorothy's like skipping around and they're having a conversation. These munchkins just like shake hands, shake hands, shake hands.
Well, I texted you. I was like, watch some of the background actors because they were very genuinely funny. They're like trying to do their thing and be part of the Munchkin land, and they're just like, we love extras.
Probably limited direction, just like okay, like look jovial in the background, and they're just like okay, like, it's 100 degrees in here. I'm wearing this outfit.
I mean, and
even up since 4 a.m.
Exactly, 4 a.m. filming through the night. It was such a grueling process, but they, you know what, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
And
did you hear how bad they got screwed over though? Like,
no, I didn't. And before we move on to that, I just want to say that the mayor of Munchkin City was the last living person from this movie who died a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Which I found that interesting. That of everybody, it happens to be not just a Munchkin, but the Munchkin that's prominently featured in that scene. But no, tell me about it.
So just like how we kind of talked about the contracts, there was a contracted person who kind of was in charge of, like, if you needed monkeys, you want to like Ron was your monkey guy. He kind of brought in monkeys that you needed. So the little people all had their wrangler, and he was basically just skimming off the top and like completely like screwing them all over.
That's
and
so
like,
messed up.
Yeah, it's just like, again, where it's just like, that's the time. But it's probably happening today.
Oh, it's 100%. But they were definitely they were poorly mistreated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I did find it interesting though that it's not just little people in that scene. There was also definitely children.
Yeah.
Like the Lollipop Guild is definitely children. And I think it balances the aesthetic of what they were going for in Munchkin Land.
Yeah, that part was fine. I forgot how little they're in it. Like that's kind of it. Yeah, like I remember them being more featured, but
no, they are very much just like the game, just a quick chapter in the story.
Yep, and then
in
the road, and then you find the Scarecrow, who's amazing, best character of the movie.
Always been my favorite. I've always loved his song the best. As I've gotten older, I've actually really enjoyed the Tin Man song. I find it very funny, like at some aspects, and like the choreo. We are both musical fans, and this was one of the first musicals I was ever introduced to. What's your favorite song?
I don't. It's funny because as a kid, it was probably The Lions, King of the Forest, and now I watched it and I'm just like, ugh, like why are we doing this? Like
the only reason they do it is because his song is like 30 seconds. So they had to give him another one.
Or am I thinking the second one? What's the second one?
The second one's King of the Forest, where he dresses up with the crown and everything.
Yeah, I feel like that was too long. I was like, oh my God, why are we doing this? Like,
I like that song.
I don't know. But I think
Burt Lauer is just so great in that role. He hams it up so much that it's very enjoyable for me.
No, he was wonderful. We'll talk about a scene that he performed that I was, to this day, is my favorite part of the movie. But probably just I think the witch is dead. The whole Munchkin Land, like I think that part's cool. Like I think I appreciate that song and everything happening. And
what I like about the Munchkin Land and everything, it sets up the journey you're about to go on so well. Know you're getting dropped right in the middle of a land you know nothing about, and you're going to experience this with Dorothy for the first time. And it just sets up, okay, there's a ton of magical fantasy stuff going on here. Kind of there's a good witch, there's a bad witch,
Yeah.
and you meet the wicked witch right away and whatnot. But I think it's a great entry point into the Wizard of Oz.
One awful edit is when the witch shows up, and then not when the feet. I don't think the feet shrivel up at that point, or maybe it is. It is. So the Glinda's just like, oh, what about the ruby slippers? And she goes over. I was like, oh yeah, the slippers. It goes over, and then the feet roll up, and then all of a sudden, like it cuts, and the witch is just like there, and she's like, ah, like I only noticed it, and I had to rewind it because I said to my wife, I was like, oof, that was a rough edit. Like it just,
I've never noticed that. I'll have to go back.
So yeah, it's just like all of a sudden she's like, ah. But yeah, like I like the witch again. Like you said, let's get the ball rolling. We've already been in this movie for 20 minutes. We're in Oz now. Here's a bunch of munchkins. Here's the bad guy. A magical bubble lady. Here's your mission. Good luck. Like no.
And follow that yellow brick road and skip on down. I actually
no backstory needed.
Nope. And I got goosebumps when she starts going down the follow the yellow brick road. I love it, man.
I love that the road starts there. Like it's not like, hey, there's the road. It's just like literally a circle in the town. It's just like you are where you need to be. Go along.
So while she's going down that yellow brick road, her little buddy Toto is right next to her. And I read that it took as many as 12 takes each time to get Toto to like perfectly run alongside Dorothy.
That little guy was all over the place this movie. That was my favorite part because like nowadays it'd be like a well-trained dog. This thing was just like, I don't know, what is this thing? What's going on?
I like it in Somewhere Over the Rainbow when he hops up on the seat, he's just pawing at her, and she's like gotta sing the rest of the song, and he's just still pawing at. I thought it was cute.
So we meet the Scarecrow. We're moving along, and we run into Tin Man again. Like it's just boom, 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 boom. Let's get moving along. Got to meet our characters. Yep. I like the Tin Man introduction. I like like these frozen. Like it's just such a neat like that. This guy's not. Yeah,
I love it.
Putting along, he is stuck.
And one day he just got stuck like the statue, like the farmhand said, and then the witch magically finds him. And
I love again, the witch is like so she doesn't do anything. She just like pops up and she's like, I'm on a fire, a scarecrow, and throws a fireball and it bounces. Just like...
So speaking of like her not doing anything, and you know, we do the movie discussion differently here. We're not gonna, you know, beat by beat. The fact that she gets beat by water and nobody like questions that is the easiest thing ever.
And that there was no setup. Like it wasn't like nowadays, if they made this movie, it would have been like sprinkled in somewhere. Like Glinda would be like, oh, like don't sweat or like don't something stupid. Like in this movie, it's just like all of a sudden there's water and just like she's dead. You're like, what? Huh?
What probably would have happened is there would have been like a little pond and somebody could have jumped in and almost splashed her.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like water? Like, is the witch stinky? Does she not bathe?
Oh, you know she stinks. But just like again, it's just like like water and I'm dead. You're just like, all right.
Like she's like, how about a little fire scarecrow? And the scarecrow's like, no, don't put it on me. But he leans towards it anyway. And then Dorothy just absolutely botches the water on the scarecrow and hits her. And it's just like one of those things that I've always been like, the water kills the witch. You just move on. And but now I'm just like, what? This whole movie was about, you know, stopping the witch, not stopping the witch. The witch is kind of just been there.
Getting a broom.
Yeah, exactly. But like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then they're immediately just like, hail Dorothy, hail Dorothy.
Yep. Monkeys are just like, you're good.
they're terrifying, those monkeys. But it's one of the reasons why I love this movie. It's so simple. Like I don't need that. I've never, you know, done an in-depth discussion about the film with anybody. And okay, so 27 years later, I'm now like, okay, yeah, the water is kind of dumb.
Yeah, but it's not because it
fits.
There's no explanation needed. Like the rest of this movie, it's just, all right, point A to point B, whatever happens in between is what we need to happen.
Exactly.
But so then we move on from the Tin Man.
The lion, we go right to the lion,
right to the lion, which is I love the lion's introduction. He's just like jumps out and they're all scared of him, and then she slaps the shit out of him, and then that's it. Done
I
deal.
still laugh at how about counting sheep?
Why don't you try counting sheep?
That doesn't do any good. I'm afraid of them.
Yeah.
He's afraid of everything, and then his costume's great. It's
Real lion fur.
really
Yep, real lion, like hide, 90 pounds. It's all together. I think the costume they said weighed like 100 something pounds
holy shit.
in 100-degree weather.
God bless these actors, man. That's
The guy,
rough.
He had to drink like all his lunch through milkshakes, but essentially, like,
Yeah, I saw that.
because it would take an hour to take off, so he would have to like go to lunch, take the makeup off for an hour, and then reapply for an hour just to like eat.
That's ridiculous.
Speaking of slapping, did you hear the rumor about Dorothy getting slapped
Oh
by
yeah,
the director?
yeah.
I
I
don't mean
heard
to laugh, but it's just like, again,
part of that is they were so focused on Judy Garland's body image, her weight, hiding her breasts. So they went to so many lengths to hide her figure, try and keep her weight down. So they gave her uppers and downers, which would cause the laughing fits. And so I would assume that that's what happened, but she said she couldn't stop laughing at Bert Lauer's. It was during the King of the Forest. So Victor Fleming smacks the shit out of her.
yeah,
And then, when the scene was done filming, Victor felt so bad and he wanted the entire cast to punch him. And Judy Garland went up and kissed him on the cheek.
yeah. But it's just like, all right, stop laughing, get to work, smack. Like, it's just like
It's
that would
crazy.
never happen. And then
it's crazy. It's ludicrous. It's crazy.
Yeah, the drug things, like
And
her
she's-
being on uppers and downers. She said she went to sleep for like days because she was so
And this movie ultimately what everybody
is
points
blamed. Yeah,
to her demise. She notoriously struggled with drugs and alcohol. And not only was she smacked on the set, she endured a ton of harassment from whether it's the studio, the director, the cast and crew would always be pointing at her girl's features. And the Munchkins apparently were some of the worst. That they were always pinching her and making
yeah, I read that too. Like reaching up her dress and
making propositions to her for sex and everything. And it's terrible. She was so young. I think I don't
17.
Yeah, she was so 17 years old to go through that and still deliver the performance that she delivers. I think she's rock solid in this movie until the very end when they're back in Kansas and she's got to be like, you were there and you were there.
Yeah.
And I was like, this part's not good. But,
she did the best. She did the best she could with that writing.
But speaking of who did an amazing job, Oz, the guy who plays Oz, because he's everybody in the Emerald City, which is one of my favorite scenes. And as they go through and they ride, the horse of a different color as it changes from cut to cut to cut. But he is every single worker in there. He's the doorman, then he is the chauffeur, and then he's the something else. Then he's the doorman again.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love that. I think that's great. And then when he's crying, when it's just clearly the water pouring down, hilarious. It still made me laugh. And I don't know if that's intent. I don't know what the purpose of that was, but it still makes me laugh.
Yeah, that was a great one. This is one of the first movies to have like licensed tees, like merchandise.
Really?
And the shirt that they made to promote the movie was the same shirt that the people, I think, Cutting the Lion, or they have a shirt that just green. It says Oz on it.
That's cool.
And they actually made those shirts for merchandise, and they were wearing it in the movie.
That is
fun fact. Little fun fact for you.
That is fun fact. I didn't know that. But I'm out of fun facts now. I don't really have any more facts about the film. But it's just crazy to me that all this shit happened, and the movie's still fantastic.
Yeah.
And it did lose 2 Academy Awards to Gone with the Wind, or I think it lost to Gone with the Wind.
Yeah,
but it won 2.
Win.
But it won 2, and then it went the movie kind of went away. And if it really wasn't for the re-release, and what really pushed it was the showings on TV, because this is before VHS tapes and DVDs and movies being re-released in theaters all the time. Once it was out of theaters, you couldn't see it again. So, like I said, people would really look forward to Thanksgiving night. I believe it was Thanksgiving or it was Christmas.
I think it was Thanksgiving. I think I read that too.
Yeah, and they would show The Wizard of Oz on TV, on CBS, I believe. And that's also why, if you've seen A Christmas Story, in the beginning, there's a parade, and The Wizard of Oz are part of that. They're part of that parade. And you might go, what the hell? It's a Christmas parade. What are they doing there? But it was so ingrained in the culture at the time that's what everybody did. And thank God. And it is, according to the U.S. Library of Congress, it is the most seen film in history.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, makes sense.
I understand why. I mean, it's probably one of the most played ones too, because every kid, growing up, even my cousin Haley loved this movie. We had so much Wizard of Oz merchandise, and this was constantly on the loop. And it's crazy to me that as much as I loved it as a kid and replayed it, so much so that like I said, my sister and my mom hate it because I loved it so much that I still love it to this day.
For real quick, because we were getting there, the scene that I love, it cracked me up. You watched it today. Was after they see the wizard, and he's just like, "Get me Dorothy's broom," and he's like, "Go!" And the coward lion runs all the way up the hallway, and then dives out the window, and then it just cuts to black.
Yeah,
it cuts to black, and then all of a sudden they're in the forest again. Like no transition needed. It's just like,
just
all right,
scared, and he did his thing. So that also, there was a part in the scene. So the movie, the original run time of the movie was 2 hours, which that's too long for a kids movie, for a family movie. We need to cut this down. So they did cut out the Jitterbug, which is a classic song at this point. If you have the soundtrack or you've seen the Broadway show or any show anywhere, it's in there. I
think that was a good cut though, because
I agree too.
I feel like that would have dated it because that was a song of the time.
Yeah.
So I think them kind of cutting it was a good call, whether or not they had that reasoning. But it's just like, I hear that song and I'm just like, oh, this is the Jitterbug. Like, it's a real song.
Yeah, which is weird. And I agree. And it's not one of the songs that was written by Harold Arlen and Yip Harburg. All these years loving this movie, never once knew the song. It's song. Not like the Sherman Brothers or whoever writes
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, so I think that was a good cut just for purposes of not dating it, because it doesn't have like a poppy song. Because I have sometimes you watch a movie and they'll have some song in there and you're like, oof, like this is an old song like we put in here.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes,
but yeah, like I mean, like a 2000s movie they're the worst when they have like this very like 2000 pop song in there and you're like,
it's like Michelle Branch everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So were you surprised to learn that this movie wasn't a box office success?
Yeah, kind of. But I also read that MGM would do this a lot.
Oh, really?
Like they would have these movies that were more to like flex, like to be like, hey, like we have this. Like these auteur movies of just like, hey, check this movie out, like we could do this, and they would let movies bomb sometimes, and I guess because MGM was like the king at the time, so it's just like, hey, we made Wizard of Oz, like look at this. Yeah. So I don't know why like that would happen. Like it makes me think of like the movie The Producers, the musical, where it's just like flop is like more of a hit. So I don't know.
I mean, that's a lot of some of the Oscar movies are still to this day are kind of flops. Mm-hmm. They don't make those big movies, but this was made for like $2.8 million. I'm not sure what that equates to today.
Yeah, I think it broke even though. Like I don't think it was.
It made more, but when you put into the production, they said their marketing,
they lost $1 million.
They lost like $1 million on it. By God, they've made it hand over fist.
Oh yeah.
Now I think the current box office total is only like 30 million, and I think that includes like re-releases, because now it was just re-released back in August, and I really wish I would have known that because I would have went. I didn't know for Judy Garland's 90th birthday or something. Okay. I think is what it was, or
she might be 100. Like
I think maybe it was her. Yeah, maybe it was Judy Garland's 100th birthday. Yeah, that's what it was. It was Judy Garland's 90th birthday. They re-released it in June, and I didn't know that. I would have 100% went.
10 years for 100th, it'll be back. So
and then for the 80th, they re-released it in IMAX. So yeah, it's been re-released multiple times, but when you do a movie like this, people don't really go.
Yeah. Well, then also, like I was kind of saying, this was like a kids movie, so I think a kid's ticket was like 2 cents compared to adults. And I was kind of joking, but it's probably true. Where like these kids were probably getting off their dangerous steel mill job and then walk into the theater by themselves. Like parents weren't. It's not like now where it's like you can offer free kids movie tickets and then charge parents $18 a ticket because they're bringing their kids. So it's like back then they're probably just like covered in ash and smoke and putting their little pennies up to buy tickets.
Different time, man. Different time.
The good old days.
Yeah. So if you had to, I don't remember if we did this for the other ones. If you had to rate this out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
That's a 5. Yeah, like this is one of those ones. It's same thing with Jaws. Like I know Jaws has problems, and I think Alien. I think Alien only gave like 4 for certain reasons, but I think I would just give this a 5 just for being a classic. And like I said, I think the technology and the tricks they did at the time were amazing. I think it just, and they still look amazing.
They do, and I agree. I would give this a 5 star. It's no shock. It's my favorite movie. It holds up. I think it's the perfect family movie. You have something in there for everybody. It's not as jokey as some of the family movies are today. There's still some really good laughs in there. But this is a classic, and movies this old don't really.
How many other movies have you besides
the only
probably Gone with the Wind? What other 1939 movie have you watched?
I've never seen Gone with the Wind.
Oh yeah, you haven't. That's right. I love Gone with the Wind,
but this movie's still on TV from time to time.
Yeah,
it used to be on Cartoon Network all the time. I don't know what Gone with the Wind's probably the only other one that plays. Other than that, like Citizens Kane's talked about, but it's not shown. You don't see that on TNT or TBS around the holidays. Like this is
the same year, 39 for Citizen Kane. It is. That's an impressive lineup still.
No, 1941. So it was after. But yeah, the two movies that are relevant from that year were directed by the same people. I find that very funny. But yeah, that's also just super impressive to me. That, I mean, even Gone with the Wind, you don't really see it on TV. You see Wizard of Oz on the TV. If it's a holiday, there's a 95% chance it's on Turner Movie Classics, or it's on TNT or TBS somewhere at least once.
Yeah.
And the fact that it stays relevant is just incredibly impressive and a tribute to the film. And my favorite scene, and it's just crazy too. My favorite scene is probably, like I said, the Emerald City scene, but there's so many iconic shots in there that are referenced in other films. And this movie has been parodied and referenced on on so many different times, and one of my favorite nods to it is the episode of Scrubs, where they do their Wizard of Oz episode, and it's elements of the story in Scrubs, and it's a fantastic episode. And for something to be parodied like that, or referenced or acknowledged, and to still be, and still to this day is, and still not be like, it's the Wizard of Oz, like whatever. People still just hold this movie very near and dear, and it makes me really happy. And I've tried to read the book, and I just don't care. And we talked about it the other day, like the amount of spin-offs that still are relevant for the Wizard of Oz. Like a couple of years ago, they tried to do a TV show with Vincent D'Onofrio, and that didn't really work. And the Dorothy Must Die books, Oz the Great and Powerful, so on and so forth. The Muppets, a couple years ago, maybe like 10 years ago at this point, there was a cartoon in theaters. It was Dorothy Goes to Oz. It was one of those really cheap made ones, but it's a cult classic film, and one of the ones that I cherish and I love deeply, and I have a ton of memories associated with it. And this is one of those movies that I'm just really happy exists.
Yeah, for sure. So if they were to ruin it and remake it, how we kind of talked about Jaws, we did talk about Alien. I think Alien would have been hard to recast because it would just be Sigourney Weaver. But I think this movie would be.
Well, hold on. Speaking of Sigourney Weaver, she's back in Avatar 2 as Jake Sully's kid, Avatar.
So I don't remember that movie at all. Okay.
She's dead.
All right.
But she's playing their baby that they had sex with their hair. And they have a baby. She's playing that child as Sigourney Weaver. I don't understand.
Oh, okay. All right.
And she's watching videos of the doctor that died. It's baffling to me.
Yeah,
I can't wrap my head around those dumb movies. But
yeah, I don't like that movie. So
yeah. All right. So anyway, if they were to recast or remake this film and do the all-time worst decision ever, are you asking me if I were to recast it like normal? I know we didn't do this for the Alien.
So let's say this is a I'm trying to think, like an auteur director wants to do this, like somebody like how Spielberg redid West Side Story, and he didn't change
So
much of it, but he was like, I love this movie, I want to do it again. So let's say we have a director who's like that, who's going to come in and like give it the grace and beauty it deserves without messing it up.
So you know who would come in and do it, and I think this guy's very hit or miss, and he has a very unique style.
Is
Baz
it
Luhrmann.
Tarantino? Oh,
No,
Baz Luhrmann.
no.
I was going to say Tarantino because I know he loves Wizard of Oz.
Baz Luhrmann would bring in those time period songs like now,
Hmm.
and like he did with Elvis. He brought rap into Elvis.
Well, I'm not
Same thing
saying.
with
I'm
Gatsby.
saying same music.
Yeah, everything's.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, who do I think could handle it?
I think
I
Baz
think-
Luhrmann could do it.
I think he could, but it could also be a massive train wreck.
Yeah.
But I think he has the color palette to handle this. I
Mhm.
think he has a unique style that can make you throw up and or make you really enjoy something.
I like Luhrmann. I like his work.
I liked Gatsby a lot,
Mhm.
and people have liked Elvis, but he has just a very flashy style that I think could work and could try to capture the magic of the 30s.
So that's what I'm going for. It's not going to be like The Rock as Dorothy.
No,
like, not
no,
a
no.
jokey one. I'm saying like if a director with some clout comes in and a studio says like, yes, do The Wizard of Oz again with the same style, like no CGI, like just a real classic slap the actresses type style of like the 30s, and they're casting it.
I'm trying to like pinpoint a director. Like
I mean,
Boz could-
automatically I just say Spielberg just because like
Boz could, Spielberg would give it the reverence. Could use
I said, I go
I'm
Tarantino.
going okay, Tarantino. And Taika, I feel like could capture the magic of it, but I feel
Mm.
like it would just be the problem with Thor, Love and Thunder, a joke every other thing,
Mm.
which wouldn't work. But he has that ability to capture that magic. But I'm going Boz, and it's a very
Okay.
yeah.
That was
it's
a good one. I didn't think of him.
So then let's start with our lead actress. Who would you pick?
So for Dorothy, I would go young. Like I would
But she's
want
meant to
her-
be 14
She's supposed
years
to be
old.
like, is it 14? I thought it was younger for some reason. So I have like a 10-year-old, which is fine. I think the girl who plays young Princess Leia, I think would do a really good job. Realistically, they would put like Zendaya in it, who I
Okay.
also think would do a bang up job. But I would rather see young than someone play young.
I couldn't name you a young person.
Yeah, that's
But-
why I just want Princess Leia
If you think if what would your guess be for me?
as Dorothy.
Yeah, if you could. You don't got-
Hermione.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who I would go with. I think Emma Watson would do a fantastic job, but she's a little bit older. So I think who could do a good job? Millie Bobby Brown.
Okay.
I can see it. I'm not saying it would be perfect, but I think
So the only reason I'm going, well, I don't know if Millie Bobby Brown could sing. Like a lot of the people
I think
have
she can. I think she can
have
sing.
some like good, like Zendaya is obviously a singer, and like some of the other cast I picked, it can sing just to add to that old musical style of like
Well,
that. So Millie Bobby Brown, I'm sure could sing because every talented person can do everything. So
I'm sure she can. I think
Yep.
she sang on Fallon actually, so she might actually be able
again,
to.
every super talented person can do
Really,
anything they
anybody
want, so,
in
yeah.
Hollywood. That's very true. That's why they're actors and
Yep.
stars. So for the Scarecrow, I thought long and hard about this, and I said there has to be a unique. I'm not going for the specific Ray Bolger type because that type of actor is not really around anymore. The very like loosey goosey,
Mhm.
very extra, and who has pipes. I went with Ewan McGregor.
Okay. I
If
thought,
you
I thought we were gonna match for a second.
If you have seen Moulin Rouge, his iteration of your song is amazing, and it's a showstopper. Who did you have?
I went with Andrew Garfield.
Oh my God, that could definitely work.
Like a very
But I can-
comically like can play the comically goofy, can also play I feel like act out like well and can sing, we learned. So
Yeah, but I feel like I could see him more as actually the Tin Man because
Okay.
I feel like that's actually a fantastic casting.
thank you.
I
Tin
do
Man
like
was
that one a lot.
Tin Man was the one I had the hardest time with.
So my Tin Man, Idris Elba.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
That was the
Yeah.
first person I thought of like immediately. Like I went through and I had bang, 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 bang. And then I was like, a couple of them I wasn't really sure.
Mm. I have Walton Goggins.
as the Tin Man.
Yeah, I think he could pull it off. Like I think he's a great actor in everything he does. He was the one where I was like, who would I want to see as a Tin Man that could also work? And like, I think Wall Goggins could do a good job. He was also my Scarecrow for a minute.
I love Walton Goggins. He's
I
great.
did too.
So for the Lion, this is the one I had the hardest time with. Originally, I was like the easy answer, Jack Black, and I was like, nah, I don't want that.
Nah,
And
he
then
won't work.
I thought maybe David Harbour could work,
Okay.
but I ended up settling on Paul Rudd, and I feel like he does that sincereness
Mhm.
and that goofiness that fits with the now very well.
Okay.
I kind of just thought about it. It seems like you don't love it. This was the hardest casting.
It's not my favorite, but yeah, like I had a hard time with Tin Man, so you had a hard time with Lion. Like,
And like you think more of a bulky actor because that's just kind of how he was portrayed. There's nobody that really sticks out to me now. I mean, I'm sure once you say yours, I'll be like,
you might not agree, but
who?
I went with Matt Berry from. He's on What You Do in the Shadows. He's one of the guys on there. He was on the British IT Crowd. He was the voice of the robot in Boba Fett, the one who come in to give bad news.
I could see that.
So he can sing. He has like an album, like a little band. He puts CDs out. I think he's like a good actor. I think he's a good comically trained actor, but I also think I've seen him play like the more sincere characters. Like his character on IT Crowd was very like over the top and like kind of a dickhead.
Okay.
But then also as he learned like to become more human kind of on that show, because he's a bit outlandish, like he played it well. So I think Matt Berry was one of the first ones I thought of.
That works with me. So this next one is one that I have perfect casting. I think nobody could play this role better than Oz, Benedict Cumberbatch. He does that.
Young. He's too young for me.
He's old. he could play. James Franco was like a young Oz. He could play such a dickhead and also such a sincere it's that balance that he does with Sherlock. It's what you see he does in Doctor Strange. Like he does that balance very well. And he just, to me, he looks like what Oz should look like. Okay. Very like old school British. He doesn't got to do his American accent. Like I want the British accent, even though it doesn't fit with the beginning of the film. In Kansas, this was the one that I was like 100%, no doubt. Absolutely.
All right. I had a tough, at first I said Christoph Waltz.
Nah, that would work.
Because I was like, he's kind of, but I mean, as far as the time I gave you about Cumberbatch not being young, I'm a Hugh Jackman. I think Hugh Jackman.
Fuck. Hugh Jackman as the Tin Man. That's who would work. That would absolutely work.
But I think Hugh Jackman could do like the growly, like scary big head, but then like the goofy, like
he could
do a hot air balloon. Like, and clearly he loves musicals. So
that could be good. I'm not going to waver on my Oz, my Benedict. This is one that was the one I thought of first. Like immediately.
We'll leave it up. We give, as the directors, we give the idea, and then the casting agents handle it. So we'll pass it off. We're looking for a Cumberbatch or Hugh Jackman type.
So then I have two people left. I have Glinda and the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, I didn't do Annie Amital.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Glinda was one of the ones too. I kind of had this gut, but as we sit here and talk about it, I'm not sure. I had Emily Blunt as Glinda the Good Witch, and I feel like that kind of works. But I also feel like my favorite person, Nicole Kidman, could probably do a bang-up job and kind of looks the role.
Okay.
What do you think?
I had Beyonce, just because I don't love her, but I think Glinda's not a character who's in it a lot, and you need your show-stopping, like grandiose person to just kind of come in. And I feel like that's what Beyonce would do. And
you're right. I actually really like that.
I don't love Beyonce, but I think she's a good actress. I think she's a great singer. So I think she could pull it off.
And Beyonce has such a
presence.
A presence and a soft speaking voice that if you've seen her in her acting roles, like when she listens, it's just really soft on the ears, just like her beautiful voice. And I actually really like that. Sorry, Emily Blunt. Beyonce's taking the stage here. I thought I did it.
To the left.
Yeah. Follow the yellow brick road to the left. And then for the Wicked Witch, I had two. And now that I kind of think about it too, just pulling from Wicked, and Dina Menzel might work.
Okay.
But the ones I have is Kate Blanchett or Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder's interesting. That's an interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
I have Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, but her and Kate Blanchett, I feel like are just interchangeable.
Yeah, interchangeable. But I think where again, like even though the Wicked Witch like is like I think Tilda Swinton could pull that ferocity off, but also still have.
They would, if the movie came out now, they would give her a second side. She wouldn't just be all.
Oh
evil.
yeah, but I'm just saying, like if she could still play that like terrifying witch persona, but still have a bit of humanity to it, which I think like by giving that the school like the what's her name in the beginning who wants to Toto, like I think she could play that role well and the witch role well. Like I don't know, like but you're right. If they did now, they would give her some.
Viola Davis would probably work too.
Mm-hmm.
She's great in Suicide Squad and kind of that hard ass role.
Yeah, but I love like the reason I thought Tilda Swinton immediately is I love she plays like Gabriel the angel and Constantine. The movie itself's not great, but the end of the movie with her like character is so good because she just plays like this evil, but she's still like an angel, duality of it. And I think that's what like I think the witch would really benefit from of just like, all right, like she's evil, but also you killed her sister, you dropped the house on her. So it's like she's
So there was two actors that I felt should be in this recast. I just didn't know where they fit. Maybe you can help me with this.
all right, hit me with it.
Nick Cage.
Okay, he's the monkeys.
I
every
originally
monkey.
the one, like I said, I struggled a little. I knew
Why are we putting Nick Cage in this movie?
Because I feel like he would be a good Tin Man.
All right, hey,
But I'd like Idris Elba.
No, I love the Cage, but he has a lane.
He does have a lane, but I feel like he would just thrive in this. Just his face as the Oz projection face.
There you go.
It's just his face.
He could be the projection of Hugh Jackman, like
a Benedict Cumberbatch,
a Benedict Jackman,
and Tom Hiddleston. I just feel like
he's the Munchkins.
They wouldn't do that. They would get real little people actors like they did back then.
No, they're not allowed. Remember, what's his name?
The Snow White and the Huntsman did that.
Well, no. Am I getting it backwards? Didn't Tyrion, wasn't he mad about Snow White?
He was mad about them not casting real little people, I think.
No, I thought they cast. Am I mixing it up?
Maybe.
I thought he was mad that like they're getting typecast as.
Oh, you know what? You are right. That was a story a couple months ago.
Years ago. It was years ago at this point. I feel like.
Well, no, because it's for the new Disney one.
Yeah, and they completely got rid of dwarves because he was calling it out, saying like, "Oh, we're just typecast as these creatures." So it would be the same thing with Munchkins.
Fuck it. You know who would be my Dorothy? Rachel Zegler from West Side Story, who's playing that Snow White. I love her singing voice, and I love her in West Side Story. She looks young enough.
She was also on. She was just on Blank Check podcast.
Oh, really?
And she was super funny. Yeah.
Really? I'll have to listen to that. For what movie?
All That Jazz or whatever. They're doing like some old musical ones, which are I enjoy.
Because I love her in West Side Story, and I think she would be fantastic in Wizard of Oz.
So she was on talk about Cabaret.
Okay.
Which is a great movie. But she was super funny. I was like, wow. I was like, who is this? And I looked it up. I was like, oh, it's West Side Story Girl, because she was talking about like personal stories with Steven Spielberg. And they're just like, oh, humble brag. She's like, yeah, I want to deliver a present to like his offices. They're like, oh, no big deal, right? Just walk in to deliver a birthday present to Steven Spielberg.
I mean, he plucked her out of a high school production, which I feel like she's just perfect for Dorothy. So Tom Hiddleston somewhere, he could
be your backup cast for everything.
But I think that's all I have.
Yeah.
To see, we'll leave it up to the audience if they would cast Benedict Cumberbatch or Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, we'll have a vote who's casting they like better.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm glad we did this movie. And when we were talking about board games to movies originally, I don't think this game was even out yet. Like this kind of, because we planned this a while ago, and I was like, all right, these are the games that are based on movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what movie game this Wizard of Oz game bumped out, but as soon as I sent you the picture of like the Wizard of Oz game, you're like, add that to the summer. I was like, that's fine. And I was like, all right, like Wizard of Oz, like, okay. But like, I'm glad we did this one because it is what it is. And like I said, it's a nice break between Jaws, Alien, Jurassic Park,
But a little
Wizard
heavy.
of Oz, and now what are we doing next? Like Potter is
Potter's
like another
next. So
another
it's
light one, and then
Fast and Furious. But it's the month of magic. You know, two magical movies, family based. July, which you go to the theater to see. You see these. You know, this movie came out in August, but you go to the theater to see movies in July that make you feel uplifted and are
drag your kids to shut them up for 2 hours.
You take them to see The Rise of Gru or Thor: Love and Thunder, like whatever you do. But it's just, or you take them back in the day, you used to take them to Blockbuster so they could pick out a movie. And
Blockbuster.
Miss it. I was talking about it the other day at work. That talk about the magical land of Oz. It was the magical land of Blockbuster.
We didn't know how good we had it.
Now everything's just at their fingertips. It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that does it for us here. Unless you got anything else to
No. I think that's it. Go watch it if you haven't, and if you haven't watched it in a couple of years, go watch it.
Yeah, it was just on sale with Prime Day. You could have got it for $10.
Mm-hmm.
And if it comes back in theaters, let me know because I would love to see it in theaters. I never have. So that does it for us here. Remember to rate, like, and subscribe. We're halfway through this Blockbuster Summer, and we hope you're enjoying it. Always check out the Instagram. We're going to have some stuff coming up there real soon with the 21 Pips, I believe, or maybe a mini episode. And check out our TeePublic store.
Thank you so much. Be kind. Subscribe.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
I would while away the hours, conferring with the flowers, consulting with the rain. And my head, I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain. I'd unravel every riddle for every individual, trouble or in pain. With the thoughts I'd be thinking I could be another Lincoln if I only had a brain. Oh, I could tell you why oceans never show. I could think of things I never thought before, and then I'd sit and think some more. I would not be just a nothing, my head all full of stuffing, my heart all full of pain. I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain. If I only had a I could tell you why oceans never show. I could think of things I never thought before, and then I'd sit and think some more. Yeah, it would be kind of pleasing to reason out the reason for things I can't explain. Then perhaps I'd deserve you and be even worthy of you if I only had a brain. I could dance